Hello everyone and welcome! I honestly can't remember the last time we discussed the gameplay side of League of Legends. If you don't count the Clash, Runes or leveling videos, last time we had a go at League of Legends the game was more than a year ago. Seriously, I can scroll down as far as YouTube lets me, and it is still all about lore, references, interesting features and other stuff. So why don't we have another shot at talking about the potential changes that might prolong the life of League of Legends? Or destroy it, if it is done wrong. If you hang around Reddit or any other challenger community, you may have noticed the buzz about AD carries not being necessary. There were a couple of interviews where even the pro players said that you don't need an AD carry to win a game. This was later proven by both LCK and LPL teams. Things like Yasuo AD carry bottom against Karthus and Taric became a thing. Another very popular bot laner is Vladimir, and Ryze is also being picked up. It seems like this is the first time in 4 years that bot lane is seeing significant changes. So the question right now is, why is this happening? How did it start? And why does it work? The answer is fairly easy. Riot started to tinker with the stats of their AD carries. Across all of them we saw base damage decrease, damage per level increase, reduced base armor, increased base health, increased health per level, and decreased health regen. This led into a couple of intentional nerfs and buffs. The reduced health regeneration ensures you have to rely on attacking to lifesteal health back, instead of just sitting back in lane and waiting to heal up. They also increased their maximum health to set them a better point to which they can recover. This obviously meant that they had to reduce their armor to counter it. The attack damage reduction in early levels was supposed to give supports more power in lane. Previously, if your support ended up in a 1v1 against an AD carry, and there was no way for the support to escape, it was pretty much a guaranteed kill for the carry. This way, all members of bot lane should be in a roughly equal spot. It doesn't mean that a support should be able to duel an AD carry, it just means that it shouldn't flop as easily. Let me now read Riot's take on this, as they explain their specific intentions with these changes. The dominant strategy in bot lane has, over time, became sustaining through lane phase and scaling up into teamfights. Between health regen and fleet footwork, it's pretty hard to put the hurt on marksmen in a way they can't passively recover from. This means aggressive bot laners, whether early game bully marksmen or supports who want to poke or go all in, feel like they have no home. Weakening marksman sustain means damage will stick on marksman, making 2v2 fighting a more successful prospect for the stronger bot lane. Shifting some durability from armor into health should also let aggressive marksmen like Draven and Lucian shine a bit harder in the early game. Finally, we are nerfing marksman base attack damage by 4 and pushing that damage into their growth stat, with the break-even point around level 9. Though that might seem counterintuitive with our goals above. It means aggressive non-marksmen, for example Leona or Brand, won't be chipped down by marksmen's basic attacks as quickly, giving them more opportunities to secure presence in the lane. Now, on top of all of those changes, there were some item changes. We got a lot of new items, we got a lot of reworked items, but more importantly, some of the core items AD carries use the most got its gold nerfed. As in, you need to pay more to get the final upgrade. This means that they will get their damage spike a little bit later, which again translates into less damage early on. So why am I talking about this? Why does any of this matter? You see, AD carries were always the most important role because they brought in the most damage in the late game. As long as you protect your carry successfully, it will win you the game. That's why Season 4 was all about tanks, where they were able to soak all the AD carry damage. Season 5 and 6 were all about mages and assassins, who could easily burst down the carries. At least both of those relate to solo queue. Pro play is something totally different. Anything can happen there, but usually it translates into solo queue anyway. And now, we are in a place where the priority of AD carries isn't that high. Their late game damage is more reasonable now, compared to what they are supposed to do. They have crap damage early game, but they ramp up later on. Previously, if you didn't have an AD carry, you were guaranteed to lose late game, which is something no other role has ever had. You can play without bruisers just fine. Sometimes, with enough damage, you don't even need a tank. Sometimes you are so tanky you don't need a support. But you always, and I mean always, needed an AD carry. It was the only role that was mandatory no matter what. So now, after so many years, not seeing an AD carry in a game is very refreshing. Just from watching it, you can feel that the game feels different. It is less about steadily melting the opponents and it's more about baiting and catching the opponent off guard. And let's be honest, by getting rid of a role that was specifically tailored to one lane, you open the door to something amazing. If, in the end, Riot fully commits to opening bot lane to the freedom of choice, what we will see is that people will specifically try and look for duo lanes with the best synergies. That's why Karthus and Taric became a thing. Karthus is really squishy, but if you fuel him with gold, he will be unstoppable. So to help him with that, you put Taric next to him, a champion who can easily protect his ally against dives. And the combinations can only get better. Think about a CC champion like Leona preparing the targets for Veigar's meteors. Think about Blitzcrank pulling enemies into Brand's ultimates. And what about pulling them under turrets for Malzahar's ultimates? What about having a random support bottom with Bard as his buddy? If you then have AD carry in your jungle, Bard can just roam and protect him against the other jungler. In the end, instead of going with 5 or 6 support AD carry combinations, which usually are viable at the time, you can get up to 40 or 50 different bot lanes. Of course, it all depends on balancing and we may end up with Vladimir versus Ryze every game. But once people realize how to counter them, they also realize that mages are strong bot laners and that every mage has its flaws. Which means that both mages and AD carries can coexist in bot lane. As a proof, that is exactly what is happening in pro play right now. It would be the same as picking Draven against Vayne, since Draven has powerful early game and Vayne has powerful late game. Only in this scenario you can replace Draven with someone like LeBlanc, a champion who's designed to shut down champions early. Only in this case LeBlanc is reworked every half a patch, so I don't even know what she does. The point is, you can replace AD carries with mages but you run the risk of losing late game. That's why Draven would still be viable. There would be strong points. While he can also shut down his opponents early, he can do that and he can carry some of the power into late game. If LeBlanc fails in this regard, she won't be able to pick it up later on. Now, there is one massive pro and con that goes with this new meta. A massive pro is that it brings more views to the pro scene, and the recent stats support it. Right now we are still not sure if it is something that will fade over time. It might be that people were just interested in seeing Vladimir against the Yasuo bot lane. And maybe in the future everything will even out again. But it's also possible that it brings in people who remember the good old days of Season 1. Days during which it wasn't as important to see who's the best Corki or who can play Caitlyn better. But those were the days where it was interesting to see who can bring the craziest strategy. That is partially why the first Worlds were won by Fnatic. Shushei, who was their mid laner at the time, played Alistar and Gragas mid, something the viewers and the players absolutely didn't expect. And because they had this ace up their sleeves, the element of surprise greatly helped them. These days the pro scene is about peaking at the very edge of a single champion, and deciding which objectives to take. Which is great for viewers who know how the pro plays work, but the rest of the people may constantly question what are the pro players doing. By completely opening the meta to the craziest combinations, every game becomes something new and interesting, and the game suddenly becomes a mind game of countering a strategy with a different strategy, and not a game where a single misclick can lose you the game, especially on higher levels. But there is one massive flaw to all of this. You can definitely notice it by watching the recent LPL games. Their teams are shuffled towards snowballing during the early and mid game, because they don't have the AD carry to power them through the late game. Which means that if they successfully start snowballing, they snowball hard. There is no stopping them. The recent games showed that there is little to no room for comebacks, and that may bring the views down again. Right now we need to hit the sweet spot where you can choose where you would put your AD carries. Maybe sometimes you can go top and play it safe. Sometimes with enough wards you can go Kindred or Graves jungle. And maybe sometimes Corki mid would fix your late game problems. We need to find a way to let all roles occupy all lanes. And that is no easy task. But in the end only one thing really matters. Will this reflect on everyday players? Will the people who pay for this game and keep it rolling be interested in this? And here I would say, some of them. The problem is that the community has been used to this for more than 4 years now. So while this change would be really healthy and it would bring a lot of players back into League, it might also anger the current players who simply don't know the days where you could go Morgana singed bot lane and steamroll everything. So if I had to answer the question, should AD carries be necessary? I would say no. Just like every other role in the game is optional depending on your team, I believe that if you want your bot lane to be the most powerful lane you have, you should be able to choose any champion that you want to power up there. And here I have to ask you, would you be interested in a game that's more chaotic but offers more freedom of choice? Or do you prefer the game as it is, where every lane is set and it's more about cooperation? Let me know below, since, after all of us are in this together. But that's going to be it from me. If you enjoyed this video and if you'd like to see more discussions, feel free to hit the like button and the bell right next to it. YouTube is weird and the bell button is kinda necessary now. If you'd like to chat, all of our social media, Twitch, merch and P.O. Box will be in the description. Of course, massive shout out to our patrons for going the extra mile, you guys make everything much easier. And with that, thank you all so much for being here and for your support, you know I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you come again.